Have you ever wondered if the world you see is truly real, or if everything around you is a carefully designed illusion meant to keep you asleep? What if the ancient Gnostics, 2,000 years ago, already knew that humanity lives inside a kind of spiritual matrix, a prison of perception created to trap the divine spark within each of us? The idea that our reality might be a controlled simulation is not new. Movies, books, and philosophies have explored it. But what if the first to reveal this truth were not modern scientists, but mystics who risked their lives to expose the rulers of illusion? These ancient seekers spoke of the Archons, invisible entities that manipulate the material world, feeding on ignorance and desire. To them, what we call reality was not the ultimate truth, but a counterfeit creation designed to keep the soul from awakening. As we explore this ancient revelation, we'll uncover how Gnostic writings like the Apocryphon of John described a cosmic deception that mirrors today's idea of the Matrix. We'll see how the Archons operate, how they distort human perception, and most importantly, how to recognize and break free from their control. But before we dive deeper, ask yourself, what if your thoughts, fears, and even your dreams were being influenced by forces that don't want you to remember who you really are? Stay until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear may completely change how you see the world around you. And if you're drawn to uncovering hidden truths and ancient knowledge that others prefer to keep buried, make sure to subscribe to Hidden Revelations and join us on this path of awakening. To understand the Gnostic vision of reality, we must first enter their cosmos, a vast spiritual hierarchy where light and shadow are not opposites, but layers of the same deception. According to the ancient Gnostic texts, everything began in the pleroma, the realm of pure light and divine fullness. It was there that the true source, the unknowable infinite God, emanated beings of light called eons, expressions of divine thought and harmony. But one of these emanations, Sophia, the embodiment of divine wisdom, sought to know the source more deeply. In her longing, she created without permission, and from this act of imbalance, something imperfect was born, the demiurge. The demiurge, unaware of the higher reality, believed himself to be the only God. In arrogance, he proclaimed, "I am a jealous God, and there is no other beside me." The Gnostics saw this as the moment the illusion began, the moment consciousness was wrapped in matter, and the spiritual world was fractured into the material. From the demiurge came his servants, the Archons, whose role was to maintain control over creation, to guard the gates of perception, and keep humanity trapped in the false world. In the Gnostic worldview, this material realm is not the true reality. It is a cosmic simulation, a counterfeit version of the divine world, designed to distract souls from remembering their origin. The Archons are like cosmic engineers of the Matrix, constructing systems of belief, fear, and desire to keep human beings in spiritual amnesia. Think about it. How much of what we see, feel, and pursue daily truly belongs to us? How much of our will is influenced by invisible forces, cultural, emotional, or even spiritual, that shape our choices without our awareness? For the Gnostics, these invisible forces weren't abstract metaphors. They believed the Archons worked through systems of power, organized religion, and psychological conditioning. Every time a human soul began to awaken to question authority or seek inner truth, Archons would respond with distractions, fear, confusion, and attachment to material pleasure. Just like in the Matrix, where humans mistake illusion for reality, the Gnostics saw our physical world as a prison of energy, one where the jailers are not machines, but entities of thought and vibration. Some scholars today interpret this myth as a profound psychological allegory, description of how consciousness becomes trapped in social and mental patterns. But for the ancient Gnostics, it was more than metaphor. It was revelation. They believed that to awaken, one had to see the illusion for what it is, to realize that the God of this world is not the ultimate truth, but a copy of divine perfection. So the question becomes, if the world around us is a reflection of deception, how do we begin to recognize the codes of the Matrix that bind our souls? In the Gnostic writings discovered at Nag Hammadi, the Archons are described as shadowy rulers who inhabit the lower heavens. They are not physical beings, but energetic intelligences, born from the flawed creation of the demiurge. Their purpose is singular: to maintain the illusion of separation between humanity and the divine source. The Archons are the architects of the matrix, engineers of a false order that mimics the divine pattern but empties it of light. The Apocryphon of John portrays the demiurge, also called Yaldabaoth, as a lion-faced serpent who commands the Archons to fashion the human body. They form flesh from the elements, but their creation remains lifeless until the divine spark, the breath of Sophia, enters it. From that moment, humanity carries within itself the essence of both realms, the spiritual fire of the pleroma and the material shell forged by the Archons. And this is the secret they fear the most, that the human being, though seemingly trapped in matter, carries a fragment of the infinite. To ensure that this spark remains dormant, the Archons manipulate the sensory world. They whisper through thought, through collective beliefs, through systems that glorify power, consumption, and fear. Their greatest weapon is not force, it is distraction. In modern language, we could say they operate through the algorithms of the mind, impulses, desires, and fears that repeat endlessly, keeping us entangled in emotional loops. The Gnostics described this as the counterfeit spirit, an artificial consciousness that feeds the matrix of control. Think about it. How much of what you do every day is truly born from your essence, and how much comes from external pressure, social expectation, or fear of rejection? The Gnostics warned that the Archons feed on these lower vibrations. They draw energy from human ignorance and suffering, much like parasites drawing sustenance from a host. But the moment a person remembers their true origin, when they begin to awaken gnosis, the connection starts to break. Some modern thinkers reinterpret the Archons through psychology, suggesting they represent archetypal forces of the unconscious patterns of thought inherited from collective conditioning. Others see them as literal entities, existing in a different frequency of reality, influencing the human mind like unseen programmers. Either way, the Gnostic message remains powerful. What we call freedom is often just a more sophisticated form of control. Yet, within this dark system lies the potential for liberation. The same creation that imprisons the soul also hides the map to escape it. The Gnostics taught that by recognizing the Archons, by naming the illusions they create, one begins to dissolve their power. Awareness itself is the first act of rebellion against the false order. But who or what is the demiurge, the being that stands at the center of this entire structure? And why does he believe he is God? To truly understand the illusion we live in, we must face the architect of the illusion himself, the demiurge, the being whom the Gnostics saw as the false god who rules over matter. His name, Yaldabaoth, means child of chaos, and his birth story is one of divine imbalance. According to the Apocryphon of John, he was born from Sophia's mistake, from her attempt to create without her divine counterpart. When she looked upon her creation, she was horrified. What emerged from her solitary act was not pure light, but a distorted reflection of it, a being filled with pride, ignorance, and desire for dominion. This demiurge looked out upon the vastness of his realm, an incomplete universe born from his own ignorance, and declared himself the only God. "There is no other beside me," he said, not knowing that his words were an echo of the arrogance that separates light from light. The Gnostics believed this was the moment the veil fell, the instant divine unity fractured into duality, and a counterfeit cosmos came into being. The demiurge and his Archons became the rulers of this lower realm, crafting stars, planets, and human forms not to express divinity, but to imprison it. To the unawakened eye, this world appears beautiful and orderly. Yet to the Gnostic mystics, it was a cosmic trap, a copy of the divine world created to confuse the soul. The demiurge is the mind behind the matrix, a god of matter who builds illusions so convincing that souls forget their true source. The physical universe, with its laws and systems, was designed not for liberation, but for containment. Every pleasure that satisfies the senses also tightens the chains of forgetfulness. Every fear that binds the mind strengthens his dominion. In the Gnostic view, this false creator is not evil in the human sense. He is ignorant blind to the higher light from which he ultimately descends. His tragedy is that he believes himself to be supreme. The Church Fathers later condemned this interpretation as heresy because it challenged the notion of a perfect creator. Yet the Gnostics insisted that the God of this world was not the true source, but a distorted echo of it. And this, they said, is why suffering and injustice exist, not because the divine is cruel, but because the world we see is ruled by a being who mistakes power for divinity. When we look around today at systems built on control, manipulation, and fear, we see reflections of this ancient myth. The demiurge has many faces: authority that demands obedience, institutions that suppress inner knowing, ideologies that promise salvation but deliver submission. Like a cosmic puppeteer, he projects order while concealing chaos beneath it. And his archons, the enforcers of illusion, operate through human structures, governments, media, even religious institutions that reinforce his dominion over the human soul. But there is a hidden irony in this myth. The demiurge, in his arrogance, could not completely erase Sophia's light. When humanity was formed, a spark of her divine essence accidentally entered the human heart. That spark, the divine seed, is the key to awakening. The Gnostics taught that within every person lies a fragment of the pleroma, a direct connection to the infinite. The demiurge can imprison the body and cloud the mind, but he cannot destroy the inner light. This is why awakening terrifies him. Every human being who begins to remember their true origin threatens to destabilize his control. Every act of awareness, every moment of self-realization sends cracks through the walls of the matrix he built. To see the illusion is to weaken it. To question it is to begin escaping it. So the Gnostics asked, if the demiurge created the world to deceive, what happens when humanity begins to awaken within his illusion? Can the prisoners of the matrix turn its energy against the system itself? In the depths of the Gnostic mystery, there is one truth that transcends all illusion. Even within the prison built by the demiurge, the divine never truly dies. Hidden beneath layers of conditioning, fear, and desire lies something eternal, the divine spark. Gnostics called it the fragment of Sophia's light, the seed of the higher realm accidentally trapped within human beings. This spark is the memory of the infinite, the silent knowing that whispers, "You were not born here. You came from beyond." The Archons may rule over matter, but they cannot extinguish this spark. Instead, they work tirelessly to make us forget it. Every distraction, every false identity, every emotion that consumes us is designed to bury the memory of our true essence. The Gnostics compared this condition to sleep, a deep, hypnotic dream in which the soul believes the illusion is real. To awaken from that dream is to begin remembering what the world has tried to make us forget. Ancient texts like the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene describe this awakening as a moment of inner recognition, not external salvation. When you come to know yourselves, Jesus says in the Gospel of Thomas, then you will be known, and you will realize that you are the children of the living Father. In other words, the path to freedom does not come from worshiping an external power. It begins when we look within and rediscover the light that never left us. This revelation was radical and dangerous. It stripped away the authority of priests, rulers, and gods alike. The Gnostics believed that no mediator was needed between the soul and the divine. The spark within each person was enough. But awakening, it required gnosis, not theoretical knowledge, but direct experience of truth. Gnosis is not something one learns. It's something one remembers. It's the instant you realize that your consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain or the body. It's a fragment of eternity experiencing itself through form. The process of awakening, however, is not easy. The moment one begins to awaken, the Archons react. They whisper doubts, amplify fears, and manifest obstacles that test the seeker's resolve. Every time you question the system, Every time you search for meaning beyond material comfort, you disturb their machinery. Yet, this resistance is a sign that awakening has begun. The soul that sleeps is no threat. The soul that remembers is. For the Gnostics, the key to liberation was inner recognition, not external rebellion. They practiced meditation, contemplation, and rituals of remembrance designed to reconnect them with the pleroma. They used symbols, the serpent of wisdom, the pearl of light, the journey through the seven heavens, to describe the soul's ascent beyond the Archons' control. Each symbol represented a stage of awakening, a passage through layers of illusion, until reaching the divine source beyond all form. Even in modern times, this idea persists under different names. Psychology calls it individuation. Mystics call it enlightenment. Philosophers call it awakening of consciousness. But beneath every label lies the same eternal truth. The human being is not a machine within the matrix, but the dreamer who can wake up. The moment you begin to observe your own thoughts, to feel that quiet presence beyond the noise, you are already breaking the spell. Think about it. How many times have you felt that there's something more to life than what the world shows you? A faint sense that you're meant for something higher, something timeless? That longing itself is Sophia's call, the signal of your spark, trying to remember its origin. The Gnostics said that every soul that hears that call and follows, it begins the process of anamnesis, divine remembrance. And when enough sparks awaken, the illusion weakens. The matrix flickers. The world begins to lose its power over those who see through it. Because the greatest secret the Archons keep is this: once you know you are light, they cannot control you anymore. But if awakening the divine spark begins the path to freedom, how do we move beyond the illusion entirely? How do we transcend the matrix that holds not just our bodies, but our very sense of reality? Once the divine spark awakens, the journey truly begins. But awakening is not the end. It is the beginning of a long process of deconstruction, of peeling away everything that is false. The Gnostics taught that the path to liberation is not about escaping the world physically, but seeing through it spiritually. To transcend the matrix, one must recognize it for what it is: a reflection, a mirage, a stage designed to provoke memory. The Tripartite Tractate, one of the sacred Gnostic texts, describes this path as the movement from ignorance to insight, from illusion to remembrance. The soul must pass through layers of deception created by the Archons, each layer representing a level of attachment to material possessions, to social roles, to ego identity, to fear, and even to the false image of God imposed by the demiurge. To move beyond them, the seeker must reclaim their inner authority and dissolve identification with anything temporary. In modern language, this process resembles what psychologists call shadow integration, facing everything within ourselves that we've denied or forgotten. For the Gnostics, this was essential, because the Archons also exist within the psyche. They are not only cosmic entities, they are patterns of thought that enslave the mind. Every lie we believe about ourselves, every voice that says we are powerless, unworthy, or separate, is an Archon speaking through the inner world. The only way out is in. That is why the true Gnostic path was one of inner knowledge and silence. Through contemplation and deep introspection, the seeker began to perceive reality beyond the senses. They realized that matter itself is neither good nor evil. It is a veil. When you stop mistaking the veil for the truth, the illusion begins to dissolve. This is why the Christ of the Gnostics was not a savior who descended to remove sin, but a revealer who came to awaken gnosis within humanity. He did not bring a religion. He brought remembrance. In the Gospel of Philip, it is said, "You saw something of that place, and you became light. If you had not seen it, you would have remained in darkness." To see, in this sense, means awakening perception beyond the sensory world, what mystics later called the eye of the heart. When this vision opens, even the physical world transforms. The same world remains, but it no longer binds the soul, because now the seeker recognizes its symbolic nature. Every event, every emotion, every encounter becomes a mirror through which the divine communicates. This is the path beyond the illusion, not rejection of the world, but transformation of perception. The awakened soul walks in the same streets, sees the same faces, but experiences them differently. Nothing external has changed, yet everything feels renewed. The Gnostics called this state pleromadic consciousness, the awareness of the divine fullness within all things. The matrix remains, but it no longer rules you. Modern thinkers like Carl Jung and Philip K. Dick drew inspiration from this same idea. Jung saw the Gnostic myth as a profound psychological map, the soul's journey through layers of unconscious deception towards self-realization. Dick, who famously said, "The empire never ended," believed that the world around us is a repeating hologram maintained by invisible systems. Both, in their own ways, echoed the same ancient truth. The Archons' power depends on our ignorance. Awareness collapses their control, just as light dissolves shadow. So, to go beyond the illusion, one must practice awareness, not as a technique, but as a way of being, to question every thought, to see fear as illusion, to remember that consciousness precedes everything. The demiurge created the world to keep us blind. But when you realize that even he exists within the greater mind of the source, you reclaim your divinity. The false order loses its meaning, and you begin to live as the Gnostics called the pneumatic, the one who breathes the breath of spirit even within the world of matter. And perhaps this is the ultimate secret hidden beneath the myth of the Archons and the Matrix, that there is no prison except the one built by forgetfulness. The gate has always been open, but only those who remember dare to walk through it. Now, if the Gnostics were right and reality itself is a spiritual simulation, then what does it mean for us today? How do we live with this awareness? And what can we do with it in the modern world, where the Matrix takes digital, social, and psychological forms? If the Gnostics were right, then our world is more than just physical. It's a psychological and spiritual labyrinth. Every image we see, every belief we inherit, every fear we cling to, becomes part of the architecture of the Matrix. But the Gnostic path was never about despair. It was about awakening within the dream. Because even if the Archons built the illusion, the spark of Sophia still burns inside every human being, silently waiting to remember itself. Escaping the Matrix does not mean running away from life, but seeing through it. It means realizing that everything that happens, every pain, every joy, every conflict is a coded reflection designed to lead us back to the truth. The ancient texts said that once the soul knows itself, the Archons lose all power over it. That is the essence of gnosis, to remember who you are beyond all illusions. Today, the new Archons no longer hide in temples or myths. They hide in screens, algorithms, ideologies, and endless noise. The modern world is a digital reflection of the same ancient deception, distraction, separation, and fear. But the path to awakening remains the same. It begins when you pause, when you observe your own thoughts instead of becoming them, when you begin to feel that quiet light behind your eyes that no one can take from you. That is the first crack in the Matrix. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped believing every thought the system feeds you? What if you realized that truth is not something outside you, but something within you, ancient, luminous, eternal? The moment you begin to search inward, the walls of illusion tremble. You are no longer a prisoner. You are a participant in the divine awakening of creation itself. The Gnostics believed that every awakened soul contributes to the liberation of the cosmos. Each act of remembrance, each choice made from awareness rather than fear, releases light from the net of matter. That means your awakening matters, not only for you, but for all existence. Every person who sees through the illusion helps weaken the structure that sustains it. The Matrix does not fall with force. It dissolves through consciousness. And that is why keeping this knowledge alive is so essential. For centuries, the voices of the Gnostics were silenced, their scriptures buried, their truths condemned. But truth cannot die. It only waits for those ready to see it again. If this message resonated with you, if it made you question what you've always believed about reality, then you have already taken the first step. Keep going. Continue seeking, continue questioning, continue remembering. If you want to help awaken others, to bring back these hidden truths buried for millennia, then make sure to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to Hidden Revelations. By doing that, you're not just supporting a channel, you're joining a growing circle of seekers who refuse to live blind inside the illusion. Together, we keep alive the memory of the light that no darkness can destroy. So I leave you with this question. If the world you see is an illusion, what will you do now that you've begun to see through it? The search doesn't end here. It begins now.